Right, so welcome everybody. We'll do the opening prayer.
All right. We'll begin in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
The reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Which of you, with a servant plowing or minding sheep, would say to him when he returned from the fields, "Come and have your meal at once"? Would he not be more likely to say, "Get my supper ready, fasten your belt, and wait on me while I eat and drink"? You yourself can eat and drink afterwards. But must he be grateful to the servant for doing what he was told? So with you, when you have done all you have been told to do, say, "We are useless servants. We have done no more than our duty." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Opening prayer. Lord Jesus, make our hearts more like yours. Grant each of us the heart of a true servant of God.
Servant of God. Pardon me, please. The Catholic Church uses the term servant of God when someone's case has been opened for possible canonization, and the Church is in the first steps of investigating the person's life and works. The title is telling. These persons are not honored for their human achievement, as great as they may be. They are evaluated for their identity before God. Any holiness is primarily God's doing, for only God is holy. We participate in his holiness through our life of virtue. Attributing holiness to oneself is the opposite of being a servant. It is an attempt to possess that which rightly belongs to the master.
Today's culture decries anything that smacks of human rights violations, slavery included, and rightly so. But there's a difference between being a slave and being a servant. The former is imposed upon a person at the expense of one's freedom. The latter can be a disposition of the chosen service. It is a matter of attitude, a matter of the heart. What is our attitude towards those we serve in our duty and responsibility, in our initiatives and noble endeavors? Do we seek acknowledgement, reward, or our just due? Even if recompense is offered for one's services, with what disposition is it received? Are we grateful to have the opportunity to serve? Do we serve in the light of our eternal goal? From what identity do we operate as we perform our daily duties? As a servant or as a master? As one who freely gives from the heart, or as one who deserves to take?
Humble servants. Jesus invites us to understand our role, not to lower our self-esteem to the point of resigning ourselves. This seems like such a counter-cultural attitude, but the essence of the message is that we give what we have received. We participate in the work of our Creator and Redeemer. The great work of God is recapitulation, a bringing of all things under the reign of God. To effect this requires living in the truth, a humble standing in our true identity. We are God's creation, made his children by baptism, and gifted to be able to participate in his life and work in this world. To do this, we seek to serve in a way that gives glory to God and assures that he reigns in the hearts of all.
Conversing with Christ. Lord Jesus, grant that we may recognize the tremendous gifts that we have been given and not seek to master of them, but to give them away to others. Help us to be aware of our identity as children of God, and thus servants of your great plan of salvation.
Thank you for letting us participate as humble servants in your saving work.
Together, my
My Lord Jesus, may our feet journey together, may our hands gather in unity, may our hearts beat in unison, may our souls be in harmony, may our thoughts be as one, may our ears listen to the silence together, may our glances profoundly penetrate each other, may our lips pray together to gain mercy from the eternal Father. Amen. It reminds me of Saint Teresa of Avila's prayer about being the hands and feet of God. Okay, presentations. We don't have any presentations. Pardon me? Oh, forgot that. Sorry. Please.
Before we begin, the Medicine Hat Catholic Board of Education would like to acknowledge that we are gathering on the traditional land of the Blackfoot people, who have welcomed here for centuries the Cree, the Métis, other First Nations, and non-Indigenous people. The land is now recognized as the traditional territory of Treaty 7 to the north, west, and south, and Treaty 4 to the east. The Medicine Hat Catholic Board of Education also wishes to thank the First Nations people, past and present, for welcoming us here.
Okay, now we have a presentation. Approval of the minutes from the board organizational meeting. Can somebody pass that? David? All in favor? And the public board meeting from October the 11th. Can we have somebody pass that, please? Robert? And we just need one, right? All in favor? I think I ask that every time. Thank you. I think I would remember it. Okay, approval of the agenda. Are there any errors or you want to add anything to it?
We may add an item 11.4 for a board meeting on Tuesday, November 15th at 2:15.
11.4. We got, oh, there's 2 2s. Okay. That was Tuesday, November 15th at 2:15. Okay, any others? All right. So approval of the agenda. We'd like to pass on. David, all in favor? Okay, board communications, Catholic education. Holy man, I was impressed with that report. That was a big one. Did you do all that stuff in that meeting? Holy moly. Good for you.
We get a lot of work done.
I was very impressed with that. It was good. There's a lot of stuff on there.
I agree.
Did you want to make any comments on that, Robert?
No, other than it was a pleasure to gather, and our priests were really enthusiastic, had lots of inputs and some ideas of their own. And no, I just thought overall it was really good. Our new chaplain was in attendance, so
Yeah, he's really gone home.
it was a really productive meeting. I mean, hopefully in the future our agendas will be a little smaller, but it was good.
Well, I don't think you're going to get this all done in the next month, are you?
No,
No, I was very like it. David?
I know we're called to be humble, but some way I might be tempted to get this shared with the bishop.
oh, yeah.
And, you know, to me, from time to time, you get asked out there, you know, what's the division doing with Catholicity?
Yeah,
I mean, I'm getting goosebumps.
yeah.
There it is.
Well, and I think this is really folks, there's so much more happening that we take for granted that it's, you know, we take for granted but it's because people have initiated it and there's work and there's discussions and conversations and a desire to build relations. So nothing's by accident, right? It's all purposeful. So, and Heather's doing a wonderful job, so.
Absolutely. All right, thanks, Robert. And Heather, your report, religious education, and again, kudos to you, it's great.
Just to add what Deacon Robert was saying, I have reached out to the bishop and with the dates of our student faith leadership meetings to see if he can come one of those days, because we like the idea of him spending a little bit of time with those students and then having maybe a lunch with the trustees based on what his day is like. And I think that would be a great time to share some of these initiatives, as well as kind of, we're going to take some time to work on our faith, kind of flesh out our faith plan. So that's in the works. As soon as I know when that is, I'll let you know.
Good.
And my report is attached.
And again, just great, like I just, you know, as long as we keep doing this kind of stuff, we don't have to defend our Catholic schools. This is our defense. David?
To Heather and to Deacon Resling, if he can provide some input. I've read in the ASBA thing that comes out every day, you know, where they have the news stories. I've seen it in the, used to be called the Carillon, but now it comes out electronically, where the Calgary Catholic Board of Education, with some encouragement from the bishop, is starting a program to help families and children get caught up on their sacraments, and it's happening in the schools. My question is, and if you don't know the answer off the top of your head, that's fine. I'd just like to find out the answer. Is this something that was an initiative from the diocese? And is this just a Calgary Catholic thing? Or is this something that we could start to consider doing too? Not only as a catch-up for kids who didn't get confirmed or first communion or first reconciliation during the pandemic, but also as an incentive to those who don't have those sacraments. So I'd just like to know the genesis of that program, and if it's up to us to do this, or is it just a pilot and the bishop's going to expand it? Just some information.
From what I understand, and Dwayne can maybe speak to it as well, is it was created to deal with the sheer numbers in Calgary. So it's kind of a one and done this year to try to get as many people, students through to experience the sacraments. The expectation is that the other boards support the parishes in what works for them.
Yeah, the other part of that as well is that it is a much abbreviated process, and so I don't think that anyone is particularly pleased with it. It's just recognizing that, you know, in a situation like Calgary, it's thousands of students as opposed to the smaller parishes that, you know, might be about 10 or 12.
I saw it on the diocese Facebook page. So it must be for other people if they want to do it. If it's on the diocese.
As far as I know, it's a Calgary Catholic.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't really comment on it other than just to piggyback on what Dwayne was saying. A lot of people didn't want it. A lot of like parishes didn't want it, and but it's going forward anyway, in whatever capacity. I think it's an online thing, is it not, or is it taking place in the school?
It's taking place in the schools.
Okay.
So who's teaching it then? Like a big teacher?
The teachers they've found teachers in-house that have offered to give their time. So it might be after school, it might be these teachers will take these students but like it was said, I I think it's 4 classes where the actual confirmation would be what? 12 classes that we have here. So it is an abbreviated program.
Okay, any other discussion on Catholic education? All right, we'll move on to the board work plan, 9.1, ACSTA facilities covenant review. This was really interesting, I thought. I don't know if I've ever, I shouldn't say that. I'm not gonna say it, but I found it very interesting. And I think it's very important that we familiarize ourselves with this covenant review and keep it in mind, keep it in the back of our minds at all times. Greg.
That's pretty much all I was going to say.
Oh.
So thanks for stealing that.
Sorry.
But it is a standing item within the board work plan. This ACSTA facilities covenant has been around for a very long period of time. I'm not sure if the diocese wishes to modernize it. It seems to be standing the test of time. However, other than that, I would defer to the trustees to familiarize themselves with the covenant, and if there's any questions, we should take that to the bishop.
David.
In the vein of familiarizing trustees with the covenant, and one building in this district that unfortunately was built in violation of the covenant, is Notre Dame. And when we discovered that, we let Bishop Henry know. We had a meeting in Lethbridge, and he was disappointed. I think it's fair to say, acknowledged it and said, just make the best of it. But that is an example of a building that is in contrary to the covenant. It's something we need to be aware of.
Anybody else? Okay, let's move on to the next one, trustee honorarium.
So again, in accordance with the board work plan as well as policy 7, we are presenting the rates that the trustees will have for their honorarium payment from November 1st to October 31st, 2023. The information is outlined within the attachment, and if there's any questions, I can answer them now.
Any questions? No, well, let's move on to information items. 1, strategic priorities update. Dr. Rich.
So the update on our strategic priorities is attached, and I'd like to draw particular attention to the community engagement meeting that took place on October 25th. Unfortunately, I think the attendance was a little lower than what we had hoped for. However, there was a robust discussion nonetheless there. A thought exchange has been launched, and I believe trustees have been copied on the initial release of it, and so that has been shared with staff. The parents will be receiving a link to the survey shortly, and then as well as community members and students after the week break is over. And once you participate in the survey, you're able to go back into it on multiple entry points to continue to rate other people's thoughts, but it also gives you an opportunity just to see what other people are thinking, so that you have full access to it up until the survey is closed. So once that is done, our results will be tabulated and reviewed by the building committee and presented to the board, and then the community report on the results from that exchange will be prepared once all that work is done.
How long is that survey open for?
Right now, it's just open kind of it doesn't have an end date basically on it, because what we're wanting to do is send it out initially and then make sure we send a reminder so that people can go back in. Because if you go in and put in your initial thoughts off the bat, there may only be a few in there. So we encourage people, as we're learning with our new thought exchange process here, we want people to come back in, see these new thoughts, rate them, and get more engagement. And so once we have it out to community members and to our students as well, and getting that out next week, we'll have a better kind of sense of when we're gonna have that closed. But yeah, so right now it's just open.
Go ahead.
Chair, with the meeting that we held at the Holy Family with regard to consolidation, it was a disappointing turnout, I mean, to say the least. I counted 8 parents where there may
Somebody
have been
told me
some
there was
grandparents.
13, I didn't count.
Well, I didn't count people who I considered to be grandparents. And I had somebody else count, and they counted 8 parents as well. But what I'm interested in is, going forward, do we intend to go to each of the individual schools and have a meeting perhaps through their parent council and try and, generate more interest, discussion, involvement?
I don't think that's been discussed, but I was thinking of putting it on the parent council meeting that I go to, and just kind of putting it forward, and what do you think, to the different chairs of the parent council. But we can, go ahead, David.
Do we have an engagement plan? Do we have okay, this is gonna happen and we're gonna have I heard a commitment the other night that the things that were generated in that discussion the other night are gonna be shared. And then is there a plan that, like, Mr. Kitch has a suggestion? Okay, now that we've had this, then the next step is this, and the next step is that a plan, or are we just kind of going along?
I'm not aware of a plan.
So once the survey is done and we get the feedback and have a chance to look at it, the building committee then will, I guess, decide the direction and the type of engagement they want to engage with, depending, I guess, on the type of feedback that we receive, whether it's providing more information through other engagement sessions or going specifically then to present on specific items that were raised, either concerns or positives throughout the engagement process.
David?
I had a question from a ratepayer, and I think this will happen is that, because we're very good at this, is that we'll use Tiana's skills to put through on social media that this thought exchange survey is available and that it's linked. But anyway, this person was talking to me about how do we reach the parents of kids who aren't in our schools yet. Because she made a very good point. She said, you know what, David, they're the ones who probably will see this if it happens. Whereas a lot of the parents who are in the schools now, depending where their kids are, they might be gone from St. Francis or St. Michael's or St. Mary's. But what about those whose kids are 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they're either coming to our schools or they're thinking coming to our schools? How do we reach those folks? I didn't have an answer. But other than social media, anyway, I'm sharing that feedback and encouraging administration and communication staff to have a conversation and brainstorm about how we can reach those kinds of people. Whether it's putting something in the bulletin, putting up posters in daycare centers, I don't know. Just, I'm gonna do it.
Good. But that's a good thought. Glenn?
Yeah, so the approach is two-pronged. One, of course, is to access the folks, some of the folks that Terry works with, because that's the immediate folks that we're aware of, and ensure that they have access to the link. The other part, though, is through social media, where we target specific demographic groups in Medicine Hat, and we pay to have those links to ensure that that information shows up in their social media so that they don't miss the opportunity to get their input.
As we're working with Thought Exchange too, Tiana and I had a meeting with them last week, and they have some really good tools for us, and specifically with Tiana in those social media targeted, like Dwayne said there, to get the information out to these different user groups. So we're going through that this week, and as we said, next week when everybody's back in is when that will start all going out. So Thought Exchange works with us directly to how, because they work with different divisions all over, Western Canada, really. So we had a good meeting with them last week of how exactly through social media we're reaching these certain target groups and stuff too. So as that survey rolls out within the next week or two, we should have a little bit more information too.
Well, they get numbers too from, if they look at an area of Medicine Hat, say there's this many Catholic kids in that area, how do they know that? Like, do we know who they are? Like when they're looking at setting up schools and stuff, they'll say there's, this population is there. David?
Mr. McPherson, is that on Bargar? Is that kind of information?
The information that we have with regards specifically to our students is on Bargar. What we don't have is the number of Catholics residing in specific areas. We know how many Catholics there are within the entire zone, but not within the area.
Okay. David, go ahead.
Does it tell you how many children are in an area?
Just our students.
Just our students, okay.
Go ahead.
Madam Chair, I recall, and I might be mistaken, I thought we had a motion passed in the spring detailing specific dates about this particular project, taking us right through to the spring of next year, 2023. And so when Trustee Leahy said, well, we don't really have a plan, I'm thinking, well, to some degree, that's our plan, isn't it? Yes.
Go ahead.
I believe that plan is due in January.
It culminates in January.
Culminates or starts?
We're to present the plan in January.
Madam Chair, if you can indulge me again. I've had some people and at that meeting were looking at me quizzically because they assumed after some things they'd heard in the community that this was a goal. And I tried to explain, no, this is a wish. And it was clearly indicated at that meeting that this is an ask and it's not done. But I think that needs to be definitely presented and cleared up. I thought a presentation that in the St. Patrick's that I attended when it was done, that there was a reference to this is in collaboration with Medicine Hat Catholic Board of Education and the Alberta government. And it didn't say we're asking for this, but it almost indicated that this is a fait accompli and that we're going ahead. And I think we need to be very careful and very clear that we indicate to everyone that that's the case. Now, as an aside, I found it comical that I sought out a table with parents at that meeting because I wanted to hear what parents had to think, not other teachers, principals, administrators, central office staff. So I left my table and I went there. And like I said, I found it amusing because one person kind of covered their mouth and coyly said, "This is the trustee who's voted against this." And I'm not wanting to be known as the trustee that votes against this. And as I said before, I can't vote in favor of it because I don't know what it is. And there isn't enough explanation and it hasn't been enough of a presentation and where it came from. So I think that's also part of the problem. So we need to make sure that everybody in this room understands. And then we get that message out to parents.
Well, I think at the meeting, it was very clear that this was not a complete deal. This is an ask.
But that's not what some members of the community are hearing, whether they're hearing correctly or not.
Yeah. And I agree that we need to get that out there, but people are going to form their own opinions with just a little bit of information. But everything that comes from the board should, or senior administration, should be, this is not a complete deal yet. It's something that we have asked the government for. So I agree with you.
Just on that note too, so email was sent to all staff indicating that, and it very much outlined that it was an ask and all the main points as well. Emails were sent to all parents and guardians too, with a letter indicating that this was an ask and all that sort of thing. We also, in the thought exchange, created a video that broke it down, showing this is what's going to happen with a little, three schools coming together. Again, next slide showing, again, this is just an ask. This is not confirmed. So I feel like in all of our communication that we've been putting out there, that it is something that we're really focusing on to make sure that all parents are aware, whether they read our letters or the emails or look at that. But we do have that they must watch that little video first to outline it all, to educate them before they're putting their thoughts in. So it's definitely something that we have been trying to communicate in all of our communication with staff, with parents, online, on our Facebook, and that sort of thing. And also linking to the capital plan too, if they do want to read it in full, and breaking it down to try and have simple terms so that they don't have to go through that in full as well. So definitely working towards that for sure.
David?
Once from past experience, I would strongly encourage a FAQ be developed and put on the website or social media or whatever. I found that was very, very useful. And then through the chair to Trustee Kinch, I respect your position, and I'm not asking you to delineate it and provide this in tonight, Mr. Kinch. I would be interested to have you put together a list of questions about things that you don't understand or don't get, so that then we can start to get, because frankly, there might be elements that for other of us haven't even thought of. So I'd be curious if you wouldn't mind to put down in an email to the other trustees, these are the things that I'm having trouble understanding. And I think from my conversations with other stakeholders, people out there don't understand either, because it's only through a as complete as possible exchange of information and ideas that we're going to come to a solution to this issue, whatever it is. So just a request.
Can you do that?
I will take that into consideration.
Okay, do we have, go ahead.
On another item on the strategic priorities, it's just to bring up a question I had asked earlier in the year. And I'm not expecting an answer tonight because I'm just bringing it up. But you'll remember that I had asked, it's related to goal number 1. And you remember that I had asked for details about the following. By the end of the 2022-23 school year, we'll develop structures and indicators that will support staff to explore and expand their repertoire of effective and responsive planning. And what I'd asked, I think it was in September, was like, what exactly are those structures and indicators? So much like I did earlier when I asked, in a month or two, if in a month or two I could have some explanation or examples of what exactly those structures and indicators will be. And to me, this goes along with something that Deacon Robert mentioned last term, and let's have specific goals here. So I see that there's specific goals, but I'd like to know more detail. Thank you.
Okay, does anybody else have anything on the strategic priority report? Any questions?
I'd just like to comment that I just think this report is excellent. I think how the structure of it, how is, I'm not sure if other divisions do anything similar, but this would be a best practice, I think, in my mind. I think it's something that we should really be proud of.
Thank you for that. Okay, let's move on to the draft administration procedure 170. Dwayne?
So trustees are aware that the committee of the whole meeting, they were presented with the draft, new draft of the AP 170. We had submitted this to legal counsel for review, and when the law firm reviewed it, they found that it was woefully inadequate in terms of clarity or providing essential direction in many areas, and it was not in compliance with our Labor Board, Human Rights Act, and other appropriate legislation. And so we asked them to rewrite the admin procedure for us. That was presented in draft form. Trustees had an opportunity to provide some feedback there, which the law firm will incorporate into it. So the draft will be finalized once we receive the new version, and we'll post it on our website, and then also post a notice going out to staff and parents and so on social media so that they're aware. The other part of it that wasn't discussed as part of the review, but it is important to note, is that there will be an education process that's also involved for our staff, so that, you know, not only are they aware that there's a new AP, but they need to actually understand the AP itself and what constitutes harassment, you know, because when we look at things like, you know, humiliating people or demeaning people or making this, you know, disparaging comments and so on, that expands greatly compared to what was previously included in that admin procedure. And so they need to understand that that behavior is not tolerated in society, and that the jurisdiction also will not tolerate it, and that there is a mechanism now, whether it be formally or informally, that's in place. And I can speak for myself with the new admin procedure. This brings a greater deal of comfort for me in dealing with issues as they come up, because not only are the potential issues identified, but there's also a process that's clear and laid out to follow.
Any other comments? I thought it was a very good presentation by the lawyers, and the clarity is very, very good. I'm very happy to see this. And thank you, David, for all your input on what you would like added. Anybody else? Okay, let's go on to Mr. Hellman, Health and Wellness Day.
So yesterday was our second annual Health and Wellness Day for the division. So a couple little things. One, all staff were invited to this Health and Wellness Day. As part of the attachment, you do have the all of the sessions that were there. So we started with a keynote. Name's Corey Johnson. It was excellent. The message was about, you know, look at abilities, look at strengths. He challenged us to look at disabilities in a different way, which was great. I personally went to Mark Reinhardt, who was the financial guy, and Pat McIntosh, who's the foods person, so I had good feedback from staff. Second half, and going into today then was school-based. So the morning was division-based, the afternoon was school-based activities, and different groups do different things. Heather, we had someone from the bishop's office come down,
yeah,
correct?
Tracy McNeil did some training on the pastoral guide for supporting students.
And continue that on today to our high school and our two middle schools. Any questions about that?
David?
My reaction when I looked at the document was very similar to my reaction I had when I looked at Deacon Risling's report, and that was quite an impressive document and plan. So I think that all the people involved in that should be given an accolade for a day or two well done. And I would be very comfortable if somebody were to question me say, Mr. Leahy talked to me about what was going on those 2 days and how it fits into what we're all about. And I would say that a lot of that, most, if not all of it, was designed to be impactful on our staff and eventually our students. It was good.
Well, I went to her presentation when she was here before. When was she here?
That was someone different.
Oh, that was
Lori McIntosh, I think.
Yes.
Picking up.
Oh, so this was a different.
Lori Johnson. This was a fellow, yeah, this was someone different.
Okay.
They were both very good.
Just a public accolade to Nick Dale and Brad Van Milkoop at St. Mary's for all their hard work, and along with those two gentlemen, all of the health champions, because each of our schools has a health champion that had a role in making sure that day ran smoothly.
All right, staffing update. Mr. Hillman.
Just very quickly, our international education coordinator has resigned her position, and we have hired Mr. Joshua Hopkins to replace. So we interviewed on Thursday, and Joshua will be starting on the 14th. We also had our payroll officer retire, indicates retirement there, and we have an internal transfer, Jane Keller. We interviewed her and moved her to that position. Jane is actively right now doing some cross training with working with Francis and help and moving in and just a major portion of it actually in with Bev. So that's great. And then we moved Misty into James' position. That was an internal transfer, and now we are advertising for Misty's position. So a number of things happening right now in our office.
What is the international coordinator's background? Does he have a background?
Marketing, he's done a lot. Right now he's actually working with the government, but he's got some marketing there. He's got some leadership. He's handled major budgets in the past, so kind of very smooth talk, very calm, which we really like. Hardworking, so we got some really good references, and he interviewed very well with us too. So we're looking forward to working with him. Plus, we will have a number of weeks with Wanda to do some cross training there, and we have Wanda on call. So if we need her for little things to help us keep along the way.
David?
Go ahead with Mr. Marcel.
Oh, sorry.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I had a brief conversation with Bev before the meeting started, congratulating her on her retirement. And she made mention of the fact that her replacement has some experience with payroll and that. And I think it speaks to, I'm not sure if that was just luck or whether that was an active plan in building capacity within the district. But if it's an active plan in building capacity, I think it was, it's paid off in dividends.
Good. David?
I'm just going to reply to what Mr. Mastel said. That's very true, because in my time here, it would cause us stress because in that position, it's a singleton. And if that person were to go out, we would have been in a pickle. I just wanted to make an observation related to human resources. It's not based on anything in this report. And I'm sure that you in your reading and your human resources person too in her reading is aware of this trend, which frankly I think is a good trend. What am I talking about? When I read about human resources, one of the things I see coming up now is that more and more organizations are saying it's best practice to put in the ad the salary range so that people have an idea of what the salary is, as opposed to, you see the ad and it's not there. So that's just something I think we should talk about. And then through the chair to to Mr. Hellman, related to, you had mentioned that this summer, the principals, you did a workshop on the teacher growth and evaluation policy. I may not have gotten that correct.
Supervision and evaluation.
How do you, what steps do you take to ensure that the principals are following what that policy says? So, they should be giving their probationary teachers, if we're gonna evaluate you, here's a letter saying this, and we're gonna meet you then, and these are the steps and whatever. Do you get copied of those letters? Or what are the steps for you to ensure that so you had this workshop, but how do we ensure that they're following what the procedure should be?
First of all, that's a conversation I have with them all the time, so that's always on part of our discussion every time I'm in the buildings. At DLT, we very clearly outline expectations in terms of, okay, here's the steps you have to take when you're evaluating. You're evaluating for probationary contracts, you're evaluating for attempts if they ask, you're evaluating, there's the reasons to do evaluations. And obviously first year teachers fit that bill. So that's always in DLTs, we discuss that. Then at the same time, Dwayne and I, when we go do our 6-week tours of the schools and we ask the questions, we see their supervision plans. So they have supervision plans that we ask to see. And that is straight out of that PD opportunity we had. And we said, listen, this is best practice. The ATA says, your ATA says you need to have supervision plans. Let's see them if we have been seeing them. So it's good.
So you, how do you ensure, for instance, that, they've given them the proper, a probationary teacher, a proper letter to begin the evaluation
I've
process?
sent out examples.
Okay, good.
So I've sent out examples of letters.
Okay.
And then it comes with the timeline, comes with all the pieces that are needed in there.
Okay. And then you tell them there's a deadline. Listen, I need to know by boom in the calendar whether you're recommending or not recommending
Not only that too, I've been so specific as to say, so there's informal observations, and we expect those to happen all the time, but there has to be a minimum of 5 formal observations, pre and post, and I do one also, and my information works in with the principal's observations also.
Okay, that's excellent. Thank you.
Any other questions of Mr. Hellman? All right, we'll go to curriculum update.
So our curriculum work started last spring, and we had SAPDC work with all of our K-3 teachers, and they really physically broke down all of the new objectives in the new curriculum. This is English language arts and the math, and they did it. It was interesting because they basically, SAPDC put all the learner outcomes in envelopes, then I had the teachers break them all apart and not only have to look at them, so force them to go through every new objective, but also start to put them into their themes and start the process of organizing it. This fall we had another day, and we had grade levels working with their own curriculums, again, math and language arts. And so those were put together. Feedback I got from teachers and principals is, okay, we think that our teachers have a good understanding of what the new curriculum looks like. Let's start talking about themes. Let's start talking about year plans. Let's start talking about units. And so what we're doing right now is we're having smaller groups of teachers at each grade level work with developed year plans, themes, units, and make them Medicine Catholic specific. And then these will get shared back out to the larger groups. So this is going to be ongoing. Come springtime then, we're going to spend some time on assessment. So the new curriculum has to be assessed properly, and then the next step then is working on ensuring our report cards communicate to our parents how their child's doing in the curriculum. So it's a whole process, and I think it's going along pretty well.
What is happening next year with the curriculum? What comes into effect?
I think it's the rest.
The rest of it all?
I believe, well, it's hard to say what's going to happen with the government, but yes, that's my understanding right now.
Because I think I had heard in some talks that it was going to get slowed down from the government end of it. Like with the, yeah.
our plan is to keep moving forward with SAPDC, keep moving forward with our grade level meetings. We have good teachers. And,
Absolutely, we do.
you know, when I talk to teachers after our very first engagement session on the new curriculum, I asked the question straight out, what out of this curriculum have you never taught before and you're totally uncomfortable with? And the answer is, in math and language arts, nothing. We're still teaching literacy, we're still teaching mathematics. Now there's changes, don't get me wrong, but there's nothing they were very uncomfortable with, and they felt unable to, you know, they had to do some real training to get to that skill level. So it's more of a matter of reorganizing, looking at scope and sequence just a little bit different than those kinds of things. So they'll work out, and I think we're in a good place.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move on to OHS.
Okay, so as the board is aware, we've been changing up OHS a bit. So we have, over the last couple of years, created our health and safety committee. And it is, we rewrote the terms of reference based on some changes in the legislation. So we have that terms of reference. So each school and employee group has representation on this committee. We meet quarterly. Greg's on the committee, I'm on the committee, and Francis is on the committee from our central office. And Jane is on the committee also for our central office. So Francis and I meet with the principals and with the OHS officers, representatives. We do 2 full in-depth safety inspections in each building and CEC yearly. And just to give you the scope of that, we did St. Mike's just this past week, Francis and I. It was about 2 hours and 20 minutes all in for a full safety inspection. I expect Monsignor McCoy to take all of a half a day because they're quite in depth. We work off of a real specific check sheet, and we go, basically the checklist goes through all the classrooms, CTS labs, community spaces, and there's a very specific checklist. In my report, I also talked about the fire code. So I met with Scott Hamlet, the fire marshal of Medicine Hat, and him and I and the other fire marshals came up with the school fire safety document that also has a checklist. And our principals right now are in the process of ensuring that all of their staff know it, and we're also putting a very clear checklist, giving a very clear checklist to each teacher and making them more knowledgeable on what fire code is and how to use it in their classrooms. And so one of their tasks then is to go through their own space with this list and start checking off things that they're doing for safety and ensuring they don't have things like cords laying where they're not supposed to be. They've got too many things hanging on the walls because it's a 20% of it, so on and so forth. So again, we're moving forward, I think, with our OHS. Any questions on that?
No.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go on to the school council financial statements.
Oh,
Sorry, the assurance measures, I forgot that.
So assurance measures are part of what the government puts out. So this spring we had our, February we had our surveys, and based on those surveys, we got the assurance measures out later than usual because there was some compromised testing pieces there, but insurance measures are out and the report is there. So basically what you have in front of you is the division as a whole, so our report card based on what the government measured. Then each school has their each school report card, including the FNMI information. Any questions?
I just was on that, the one, the FNMI. It's school completion. So does that mean that we have Indigenous kids that aren't completing school? What does that mean?
Well, the one thing I did put there, which complicates this whole thing quite a bit, is the small number of students that the government's reporting on here. So like the 3-year completion, like 6 students were kind of eligible, and the next one 10 students. So hard to get a good read on that number of students, but 3-year completion rate, so 50%, so that I take that to mean that half of them passed and half of them took longer than 3 years. So does that mean they didn't pass at all? I don't know, just longer than 3 years.
Oh.
Same with the 5 year, so 63% passed, so 47% didn't. Now, that's based on 10 students. So it's hard to get a really good read there.
Right. David?
Through the chair, Mr. Hellman, the pass and the diploma results weren't shown because of the mid-COVID years.
COVID years is one reason. There's some compromised information there, as we know. I do have some PAT result, well, all the PAT results actually, and diploma results, but the diploma results are just for, if you'll recall, just the June and not the January, right? So I do have those results, and I can get them to the board if they would like some copy of those.
Yes, so why weren't they reported in, why didn't the government report them?
That's a good question. The last 2 years, of course, we didn't write them. This year we did. So the 2 prior years we did, they were canceled. No one wrote the PATs there, and so the information wasn't included here. So they did a 3-year average. My guess is that's not counting the 2 years that they didn't have any PATs whatsoever, and nothing. They didn't report anything for this year. Yes. So.
I hear you saying the word compromise. What does that mean?
So basically in June, we got information from the government that students were taking pictures of tests and sending them out to all of their friends. And the next thing you know, you had students that were averaging 50-60%, 90-95%.
So this was on the diploma?
Yes, nope, not diploma, these were on the PATs.
Provincial achievement test, kids in grade 6?
Grade 9.
Grade 9, okay, yeah. So I'd like to see those. I think all the board members would, just an assumption. And then obviously a comment that we should be proud to repeat every year, and we do, that once again, our district has done very, very well in all these results, with the exception of FMI, which is an area of growth. But I know some people probably tired of me saying this, but for now over 15 years, and through successive administration and through successive boards, this district continues to have excellent quality assurance results as measured by government metrics. And I know we're called to be humble, but in a weak moment, I think we should celebrate the results. And I know in the past, I know Chairman Mastel would send out letters to the staff recognizing their and sharing and celebrating this achievement, and perhaps it's something to consider doing again. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
I'm reminded of that country song, "Oh Lord, it's hard to be on it."
But we're not perfect. Which is the
You're
next one.
absolutely right.
Which is the next line of
Yeah,
that
I
song.
know. I wasn't gonna go there. All right, 10.8, school council financial statements.
Thank you. This is from the board work plan. The information that the trustees are looking for is information around the each of the school councils and parent associations where their financial statements are, as well as their agendas. So we've provided a summary document of the financial position for each of the school councils, as well as their parent fundraising body. And if you want to see the details, I have a fairly thick binder in my office. You can just come see me, and I'll loan you the book. So, if there's any questions, let me know, and I'll try to answer them.
So just to clarify, when you mean details, X school spent $30,000, this is what they bought with it?
They'll have the actual financial statement. They'll have the agendas from each of their meetings. I think those are the two major documents that are provided.
Just an observation, I was surprised, not in either a negative or a positive way, that combined our schools raised approximately $250,000 last year. So that indicates that there are a number of parents out there who definitely see needs and are convinced that there are needs at our schools for funding.
Absolutely.
Okay, 10.9, establishment of a separate school district.
That's me as well.
Yes.
So we've had an individual who is residing outside of our boundary apply for an establishment of a separate school district, or commonly known as a 4x4. So the individual has started this elector-driven process. The process is outlined in the document that Alberta Ed puts together. It's called the Establishing a Separate School District Information Package. And I've provided the link, and it's a very good document. It takes a very complex process and brings it down to manageable steps. So if you're interested, I would review that document. The first step overall in the process is for the person wanting to do the establishment to file Form 1 with Alberta Education, which is essentially an intent document. And it also includes those signatures of 2 other people resident within the historical school district that they're looking to combine. The next step is for an agreement by December 7th on the area of the establishment. Now, the establishment has to form the historical school district. So you go back to the early 1900s, and Alberta was broken down into many school districts. A lot of them are on sections of land. So based on that, it's those historical school districts that have to come into a separate school district fully intact. So I provided a map of the historical school districts that are surrounding that Medicine Hat Catholic, and the district that the individual is most interested in forming is 1912, and that's the area between Redcliffe and Suffield. So we had a meeting with that individual, along with Prairie Rose School Division, which is the requirement that we have to fulfill according to regulations. And we discussed forming 4 areas. So Historical School District 1912, which is the area we just talked about. There was 3359 and 4990, which are the one area due north of our current boundary, and then the area between 1912 and that area north of us. The discussion that we've had with the individual after that was the electors in that in those 2 historical school districts do not wish to proceed with an establishment order. So those 2 school districts will not be combined as part of this establishment. There is the area by Suffield, which includes Ralston. That's Historical School District 2757. The individual has indicated they're not willing to proceed with that. However, there is one individual who attends our schools, and the recommendation was that we contact that individual to see if they're willing to proceed with the next steps. So the superintendent and I will have a discussion about this next step, and then we'll likely make contact with the individual in that historical school district in Suffield to see if they're willing to proceed with this. Assuming we come to an agreement by December 7th, which I fully expect we will, the next major event will be for the individual who is spearheading this process to conduct a census to determine who the minority faith is. So within the 4x4 process, Catholics would have to be the minority group in order for this to proceed. If they are in the majority, the process comes to an end. So we'll have to wait to see what the outcome of that census is. assuming that we are proceeding, because we are part of the minority faith, then a community information meeting will be held with the electors within the historical school district, which will be followed up by a vote. The returning officer will be appointed by the minister, and the election must occur on or before April 30th of 2023. Typically, if there's a successful vote, the school district will be set up for the 23-24 school year and then combined into the Medicine Hat Catholic Board of Education. So that's kind of the big 64,000 foot approach to this process. It is, like I said, an elector-driven process. We don't have an awful lot of involvement with this. So we're kind of watching what's transpiring. But like I said, we are interested to see what might come out of discussions with the one individual who is residing in Southfield.
In the history of this board, there have been discussions in this room about making our boundaries coterminous with Prairie Roads. If we were to do that, could it be a board initiative? Like there was a process here at one time where board hired a former principal and he went around and he contacted all the people, he did the census and so on. Am I hearing you say that's not allowed now, it all has to be elector driven?
What I'm saying is the information that I'm receiving from Alberta Education is this is an elector-driven process. So
This one is.
The establishment as it currently stands is an elector-driven process where the electors would have to fill out that form 1. It's not something that we can do by board motion. My understanding is we have had a couple areas, and in fact, I believe the former principal was involved in this, and the results of the census in at least one of the historical school districts was that Roman Catholics were of the majority faith, so we were unable to form that. So while I understand it and would support having perhaps coterminous boundaries with another public board, there are school boards that we would not be able to form because of that.
Is Desert Bloom part of our school district?
Yes.
What would be the cost? This all goes through, there's one family that we're servicing,
There's at least one of them.
at least one. Like, I guess I'm thinking transportation
There's
and all that kind of stuff.
there's several very good reasons for this. One is the provision of Catholic education to non-served people,
Absolutely.
giving those people, those electors, the right to vote for trustees, and then provide for transportation. With regards to the cost itself, we've done some preliminary work, and we think we can bring those students into the division on existing buses. So we probably need 2. However, there would be a cost to it in several $1,000s based on fuel and additional time. The other challenge is the schools would be designated schools. So while those students may be attending another school currently, they may not be afforded that same opportunity on a go-forward basis based on where the designated school for that bus is. If we were to look at alternative aspects, then obviously alternative pricing might be required.
And you said like this 1912 here, they have to hook up with somebody else, right? Is that what you said?
I might have said that, but that's not what I meant.
Okay,
So, 1912 can be its own historical school district.
Okay.
That's brought in, but when we were having the meeting with the individual from Prairie Rose on, Friday, the intent was to add on two other boards,
Okay.
two other historical school districts, because there was, students who were residing there. However, the decision by those people in those historical school districts was not to continue with the process. So at this point in time, it's only 1912.
okay. Okay, any other questions on that? It's kind of an interesting concept.
It is.
Yeah.
It gets a little complex, and
Yeah.
looking at things from the early 1900s and putting them in today's context isn't always seamless.
Craig, I'm not sure if you can answer this question, but how big are those squares that are in 1912? Are those sections, is that to represent one township, or how, what area does that include?
Those I believe are the sections.
Yeah, I think there's 6 sections, so that would be a township.
Yes, they are, because if you look to the middle of the east side of 1912, where it makes that little D, that little D encompasses a quarter section. So each square would be a section.
Would be a section, okay.
Did you have your hand up, Bernie?
No.
No. All right, is that it? We'll go on to the next one. Mr. Lair, draft opiate response.
Just for information for the board of a draft AP, we had division leadership team trained. It's a quick 5-10 minute training around the administration of naloxone. And much like schools carry, we have AED devices, we carry EpiPens. Now we're asking that they have naloxone kits available. They're free in the school. The first thing 911 will ask when you call is, do you have a naloxone kit? So I don't want the response to be no. The response is yes. And if you have someone trained to deliver that medication, great. If you don't, you'll still go through the procedure that 911 tells you to.
So are we training people for that?
Schools have the option to train people,
Okay.
but once you're trained, you still have the option to administer that medication if you're willing to or not. But if you don't have the medication or the training, you can't.
Okay, any questions?
Just a comment about what we're asking our schools to do. It used to be you just taught reading, writing, and arithmetic. Now we're teaching trades, we're feeding kids, we're looking after them before school and after school. We're looking after their nutrition with hot lunches. And now we're treating overdoses. I guess my question would be kind of rhetorically, where is this going to end? How much more can we pile on? What do we expect our teachers to do?
So technically, we're not asking them to do anything other than house naloxone in the school.
But somebody's got to be trained to deliver it.
Yep. If they choose
Yeah.
to. Unfortunately, and other school jurisdictions have trained not only staff, but students, especially grad classes have been trained. But unfortunately, opioid overdoses are often accidental. You could have parents, kids show up at our school or have this happen within our buildings. And to not even have the ability to respond is a scary thing, but at least to have the medication available as a response takes that equation out of that. Takes that out.
Dwayne?
Having worked in a school where a student had an anaphylactic shock and died. They didn't have an EpiPen, and that was one of the reasons when I came here that we made EpiPens mandatory in all the schools. That happened well over a decade ago, but the staff there still haven't gotten over it. And so, while it's one more thing, if we have the unfortunate circumstance where that occurs in our buildings and we're able to at least provide it to someone who's capable of doing it, it's important for that to be there.
Well, I don't disagree with the things being there. I think they're critical that they be there. But the point is, we've just come so far from where we used to be to where we are now.
Yeah, I'm really happy that they're there too.
I agree. Earlier in the year, there was an incident. What was it, involving a house across the street from St. Mary's? Was there drugs involved in that situation? I thought there was a lockdown call at St. Mary's.
They had an individual in front of the school that they were unsure of where he came from, what his goals were, and so they did a short lockdown.
Okay.
Just the first time of it.
Some guy in a cowboy hat, but it wasn't Chuck.
Or was it you or your Halloween?
It was a holding secure.
Okay, thank you. You know, I am aware that recently one of our teachers administered naloxone, is that what you said?
Yeah.
To somebody that they found laying on either on the schoolyard or close to the schoolyard. It's I hear what Mr. Mastel saying, and I agree with him. I'd even go further, but I wish our government, I'm not making a political statement, governments would recognize the amount of other things schools do these days and fund them appropriately. And I'm sure our resource officers, heaven forbid we'd ever have a situation where we had one of these drug houses close to where our schools are. And I know, you know, and then there's school grounds are at night a favorite place to hang out. Sorry, go ahead.
You'd be surprised how many opioids are in everyone's house right now. It's not just drug houses or illegal medications or drugs. There's a lot of household medications that have a large percentage of opioids in them that can do significant damage and death.
So I appreciate that we're paying this some attention.
Yeah, I think it's in today's world. I agree with Dwayne. I had a granddaughter who had that, and not allergy, and anaphylactic shock. And boy, I was glad the school was on top of that one when she was there.
But it's a difficult dance. I understand the ATA's perspective on this. So we're not saying must do, but must have.
Okay, thanks. Communications report, Tiana.
Don't have much to say, but my report's attached, and I'm happy to try to answer any questions if there are any.
Well, as always, you're doing a very good job. I'm really happy with the social media part of it is just really, really good. Go ahead.
And I'm glad you said that because it dovetails into what I wanted to inquire about. I'm sorry, I think it was on the ACSTA thing we get on Mondays, I believe it is, where I saw where Holy Spirit was celebrating the fact that they won some award for their communications team. And they nominated this team. And I'm just suggesting that perhaps we look into that because I think, agreeing with what you said, and it's been stated a number of times here since we've been on the board, that our communications team does an excellent job. And the senior administration thinks when they look at the criteria for this award, it's something that it would fit us, then I think we should put our names in there.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Tiana. Action and discussion items. Dr. Zarichny, trustee school tours.
So we had earlier discussed providing an opportunity for trustees to tour all of our schools and have the principals show you each building and see what's going on with the students there. And trustees expressed an interest in that, and so we indicated that we would do that in November. And so there's an opportunity either now to select a date that works for you, or if you would prefer Chelsea to send a survey with a few possible dates available. We probably would do it at least over 2 days.
Probably 2 or 3 days, depending on how many schools you guys are interested in a day.
Does delivering fruit baskets count?
We could do the travel.
If it does, I'm done.
And again, this isn't a force to, this is, if you folks would like to, then we can formally organize it for you.
I would like to. Anybody else? Yay or nay? David? Yes?
Yeah.
Robert?
I think it'd be great, but I don't know if I'll have the opportunity to
That's a bad time for you.
yeah.
Dick?
Well, I'm just looking at the calendar. Next week is pretty busy. And the week following is pretty busy also. When were you thinking?
We can push it into beginning of December if that works for folks that we're flexible with our time.
I think that may be better. There's a
Really?
lot going on, actually, there's a lot going on in the next 2 weeks.
I can look at the beginning of December, if that works for you.
Bernie?
Just let me know when it's gonna happen
Okay.
from there.
Perfect. I'm the same way. I'm on Bernie's boat.
Are you kind of thinking three in a day?
I don't know.
For 3
What are we,
days
what are we
kind of thing?
doing when we're there? Like, how long is it gonna take us?
Well, it depends on which principal you get.
Yeah,
They're happy to have you and show you around and chat.
Stop at McCoy and have lunch there.
yeah, we can do that.
I'll take
Okay,
a look and
yeah.
send some things out, and
Perfect.
then we can kind of chat over an email.
All right. Is that it? That's good. You got everything you need for that? St. Michael's School Reserve Use Request. Mr. McPherson.
Thank you. So the principal at St. Michael's School is requesting access to her reserve of $3,854 to assist with staffing within her school. So the recommendation is be it resolved that the Board of Trustees for the Medicine and Catholic Board of Education authorize the use of $3,854 from the St. Michael's School accumulated restricted reserve for the St. Michael's School operations in 2022-23.
Okay, any comments? Go ahead.
You need a motion? Yes, please.
I'd like to make that motion,
Okay.
please.
Should we wait till Dick comes back? Or? What is she doing with this? Did it say?
The staffing costs within the school
Oh, right.
were higher, so it's reducing the other areas
Yes.
she would use the reserve.
I could make a note too.
Pardon me? I can vote without Dick. I guess there's 4 of us here. All in favor? Okay,
The next item is dealing with the technology budget, and what I'd like to request is that we transfer $92,000 from the unrestricted reserve to be added to the technology budget for cybersecurity enhancement project. So the motion will read, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees for the Medicine and Catholic Board of Education authorize the use of $92,000 from the unrestricted reserve to be added to the budget for cybersecurity project.
and that was what you told us about before, right?
Based on the discussion we had in the committee as a whole, the budget for the cybersecurity project was set at $100,000 based on what we had anticipated at that point. As this project is unfolding and we've priced it out an additional $92,000 is needed for us to ensure that we have a fully secure cybersecurity system.
Okay, and that's going to give us, what did you say, the software and the,
It will provide a lot of software monitoring as well as hardware to ensure our system is adequately secure. This includes backups, multi-factor authentication, enhancements to the security system itself, and password protection, phishing testing, and training for all staff on proper procedures when dealing with external emails.
and like, is there a lot of trouble like with this in Alberta or?
Cybersecurity is a significant issue in nearly every industry. The education sector is not exempt. But very recently, you'll recall, I believe it was Los Angeles School Board or a very large school board in California had ransomware. By ensuring that we have a very robust, solid cybersecurity system, we can prevent the likelihood of third-party or threat actors accessing our systems.
It just makes me crazy that we have to do this. I'm not against it, just that we have to. Okay, who would like to pass that motion? Robert? Any more discussion? All in favor of the motion? Pass.
Thank you.
Okay, where are we at here? No, we have to do 11.4, the board meeting. We just have to say that, right?
Yes.
Okay, 11.4, there'll be a board meeting on Tuesday, November 15th at 2:15 to discuss negotiations, right?
Yes, with the APA.
Okay. All right, committee reports.
We'll need a motion.
Oh, we need a motion for that?
Yes, please.
Can I have a motion for that?
I'll move that.
Oh, sorry, Bernie. All in favor? Can't see out of both eyes at the same time. All right, committee reports. ATA negotiations. Well, I guess you've kind of done that already, right, Dick? Or do you have more?
Sorry, I just got an email here that caught my attention, involving a death, so I'm a little distracted here.
Aw, sorry to hear that.
Yes, the report with regard to the ATA is complete. For the benefit of those listening, we discussed that during the committee of the whole, being that it's a labor issue, and we are not permitted to discuss those things in public because it's dealing with negotiations. The report I have is with TIBA. It's a short report, but there's another space for it further in the agenda.
Okay, thank you. All right, 12.2, Deacon Robert, QP.
Nothing to report.
Okay, 12.3, Mr. Kinch, Teacher Board Advisory.
Chair, we will be meeting on the 16th to have our
Of
first
this
meeting.
month,
Yes.
yeah. Yeah, you don't have to, how many times do you have to meet here? Is it four?
Minimum 2, I believe, but depending on how many issues arise, it could be more.
Okay, thanks. All right, 12.4, Deacon Misling.
Nothing to report.
12.5, QP super staff. So they are super staff, there you go.
It's a big Freudian slip there, man.
Yeah, Mr. Leahy,
Nothing to report.
thanks. Student Board Advisory, we don't have anything there.
Can I do McCoy first? I asked you this last month too.
Do I want to do one?
You can get to the-
Oh, you're asking me if I want to go there, yes. I've been there.
We'll go through.
Yeah.
Start with McCoy first.
Perfect, yeah. 12.7 Audit Committee. There's a report attached there.
There is a report. So the audit committee will be meeting November 24th at 10 a.m. to receive the financial statement from the auditor and present recommendations to the board of trustees. And then the board will be meeting November 29th at 3 p.m. to, that says 3 a.m. It's not 3 a.m. It's 3 p.m. to be clear.
I won't be here.
To approve the 21-22 audited financial statement.
Thanks. Dr. Zarichny, Division Consolidating Planning Committee.
Once the thought exchange process has been concluded, we will call a meeting shortly of the committee to review the thoughts gathered and then develop our plan moving forward with respect to engagement and who and how we'd like to engage.
ASBA, Zone 6. Dick?
I missed that meeting because we had a TIBA meeting that same morning. So there's no report. Other than, I can tell you this little bit of, I guess, a little bit of gossip. That occurred the day after the meeting. Dexter Duffy, who has been the secretary treasurer of the of Zone 6 for a great many years, has resigned effective immediately. He felt disrespected because the executive of the I shouldn't be making this report.
Okay. We won't make it.
We won't make it to the report.
Perfect. We're not supposed to gossip, so we can't do it. Where am I at here? 12.10 ACSTA Association. Well, we're going to the conference on this weekend, but the next weekend. So I don't really have a report there at all. I haven't had anything. I'm going to on Thursday. I have a Zoom meeting on how to vote, the Claire vote thing, get back on here. But other than that, I don't have anything to say there. 12.11, Education Foundation, Mr. Kinch.
Chair, my report is attached in the form of the minutes from the meeting of the subcommittee for the grant committee of the Ed Foundation. It's there to be seen.
Any comments? Go ahead.
I'd just like to, I don't know what the protocol is, extend condolences to the Martin family for the passing of Byron Martin, who served on the Educational Foundation and was a volunteer extraordinaire for a number of causes in the city. His 3 children went through our system. His 3 children were teachers. His wife was a teacher. His father-in-law was a board member. And so it was a real loss to our community and the foundation that we lost to Byron.
Maybe we could send them a mask card.
Yeah, we did them in, I
Oh.
think, Kennedy also actually did get a very large fruit basket and arrangement and everything from the Education Foundation, is that right? Yeah.
Good, that's good, and this good guy. Okay, Parent Association, I have minutes there from our anyway, again, it's a great place to go to, and we have some really good people that come to that Parent Association meeting and are very active in their schools. And what I like is this year, especially I've seen, is that they're very active in bringing in new members. All of their memberships seem to be up, and they're really promoting themselves, and it's really good. And most of them have gone where you can come to the meeting or you can do it online, and so that has also increased the membership and the interest in the schools. So that's really good. Good stuff. Okay, 12:13, TBA, Mr. Mestel.
Thanks, Madam Chair. The last meeting of TIBA was on the 18th of October, again, the same date as the zone meeting. A fairly interesting discussion. There were 3 lawyers that were making a presentation, and the topic that they were talking about was disabilities and medical terminations. And they were talking about the rules and the procedures for boards to be able to terminate people who are on staff who are on disability, or terminations for medical reasons. They asked the question, can an employer terminate? The short answer is yes, but it's a very long and complicated procedure because you have to comply with all kinds of human rights regulations, privacy, and common law. So it is possible, but it's a very long process that is required to do that. Employers are required to make reasonable accommodations, but they emphasized the reasonable part, that perfect accommodations just don't exist. The question they also discussed was, is the disability permanent? Is it a total disability for a short period of time and you can come back to work? All of those things factor into whether an employee who is on disability or has a medical condition that keeps them from working can be terminated. And again, there's the duty to accommodate. There are all kinds of options, as we know, modifying the position to the point of undue hardship. If the employer has to modify the position to the point of undue hardship. And it's really on a case-by-case basis. There's no set of rules that fit the entire package. Sitting in on the meeting was our HR girl, and that was important information, I think, for her. The next meeting of TIBA is on the 22nd, I think. Let me check my phone. The 22nd of November, from 3 till 5. It follows the ASBA meeting. The ASBA meeting finishes at noon, and the TIBA annual meeting will begin at 3 o'clock.
So that's in Edmonton then?
That's again in Edmonton. I'm hoping at the same hotel that the ASBA is at. Given that the meeting will end late, and that I very much want to be here the next morning for the meeting with Cindy and our evaluations. Chelsea has arranged for a flight for me to both to Edmonton and home to be able to attend the meeting till 5 o'clock on Tuesday evening and be here on Wednesday morning for the evaluations meeting. So I hope that those connections work out all right. Other than that, I have nothing else to report, Madam Chair.
Any questions?
Hopefully you don't have to wait till that, 11:15.
That's the one.
And hopefully it's not canceled. That's-
And Chelsea forgot that I'm retired and don't get up that early, so she scheduled me on the 7:10.
You can sleep on the
7:10
plane.
in the morning.
You can sleep on the plane.
I gave you an option.
She did.
It's better than driving 6 hours in the dark home too, I have to say.
It is
You
very
snooze
much
in the
better.
airport.
No, I think that's a good call.
Yeah, no, I do too.
I've been on that little thing, what is it, what flight is it, used to be 5:15 or 5:30. And you get in the plane, it would be warming up.
Mm. This isn't on here, but I just want to quickly ask, are we going to come up with a travel plan, or are we all going individually, or how does that work? So we could discuss it next week at that meeting, but we'll do that. All right. Just because I hate winter driving. All right, we're done. We will have the closing prayer Mr. Maskell?
Thank you. Again, let's open with our sign of our faith in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. And together, killing out the dreams, Lord, thank you for being with us during this meeting, and for having guided our thoughts, words, and actions. Stay with us now as we leave this meeting and return to our respective lives. Help us keep you as we are now in our thoughts, words, and actions. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Okay, so we'll go quickly back to the committee as a whole and do the last thing on here. So that's just the trustees only.
Are we gonna push Mr. Wells to next month?
Yeah, we'll do 2 chapters next
Okay.
month. They're short chapters anyway.
Yeah.